Well, here we are. I'm Tom Osman, and this is Whatever Comes Next, the podcast where I explore the world of underground and independent music making. And on today's episode, I am talking with vocalist and guitarist Daniel Wallenborg of Swedish sludge-metal four-piece kəÄlaps, who back in March put out their self-titled second full-length record on These Hands Melt, which you can purchase on vinyl, CD as well, I think, or digitally from Bandcamp, as well as all the various streaming services as per usual. If you're wondering why I am talking so close to the microphone in such hushed tones, it's because there are people in my building drilling holes all around me, and I'm hoping that you can't hear it. And that's why I'm coming so very close. And yeah, and for that reason too, I don't want to make this intro too long because the drilling is making me lose my mind. So yeah, kəÄlaps. As is often the case with bands I talk to, they don't really neatly fit into a genre categorization. There are post-metal elements, there are hardcore elements. We can call them sludge. I think it serves its purpose more or less, but we do talk about that in the interview, as well as getting into some of the practical topics that I like to discuss about, the costs of making an album, the value of social media, streaming services, all such things like that, which was all very illuminating from my point of view. And yeah, I will let you hear it all from Daniel himself in just a moment. I'm going to play a track from kəÄlaps at the end of the episode with a little clip coming up. I am going to tell you what I'm going to play, in fact, because I know what it is. I am going to play the first track from the album, Subverse. And the band have their own website. It is in Swedish, I believe, but you can get various links to their music from there. So the website is KOLLAPSE.se. You can also find them on Instagram, where they are KLPS_music. You can find them on Facebook, where they are kəÄlaps Music, KOLLAPSEMUSIK. You can follow me at Tom Osman Sounds. You can find out what I'm doing musically at tomosmansounds.com. And so kəÄlaps have got some live shows coming up. They are going to be playing a name that I can't pronounce, Doomfest, on the 7th of June. I guess it's in Sweden, and I would not wish to butcher the name. You can check that out from their website. And I think Daniel mentioned there were going to be some other shows coming up, but that is the only one that's mentioned on their website at the moment. So go there, check that out. If you're in the area, go and see them. I'm sure they put in a powerful live show based on the powerful apocalyptic music that they play. And yeah, I think that's all there is to be said. So Daniel Wallenborg of kəÄlaps, take it away. I usually tell people that I have a lot of tattoos, but you, sir, have a lot of tattoos.
Yeah, I have a few.
So tell me about your tattoo, because I'm always curious when I see people that have this kind of like consistent designs all around the body. I think like you must have decided quite early on that you wanted to be able to have everything to go together. When did you get your first tattoo?
I got my first tattoo when I was 18. Just turned, and my friend was an apprentice at a studio and went there one day and got a tattoo on my elbow.
On your elbow? Okay, that was your starting point.
Yeah, because I used to be only the singer for a band when I was 18, so I thought it would look cool.
Okay. At what point did you decide that you were going to get, like, I'm assuming that underneath your top, like this neck tattoo connects like all around your chest and your back as well and down your arms. Is that right?
Not really. I got both arms. I got my neck, and I'm waiting to do the chest and probably the stomach as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think for me personally, the worst pain of tattoos has been on my back. What about for you?
Somewhere around the inner arms and down on the hands.
Oh yeah, I've heard from a friend of mine that it's really bad getting your hands done.
Yeah, pretty bad, but the knuckles are something else.
Okay.
But overall, it's not really that bad. Maybe I I can take the pain. I don't know, but
Yeah.
overall, it's pretty good.
And what about the neck?
Not that bad actually. It was probably the least amount of pain I've had.
All right, okay.
My, yeah, I don't know. It was weird because when I went in to do it, the guy that tattoos me now, he's got his whole head and stuff like that, and he said, "Don't worry, it's not gonna hurt that bad." And
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, you're like kidding with me, but it was actually right.
All right. Yeah. So anyway, you are in Sweden, right?
Yeah.
And I've been to Sweden, although it was a long time ago, and I know a little bit, but not a lot. Tell me about where you are exactly in Sweden. What's the environment like? And what's it like for playing music?
We're in a town called Helsingborg. It's a coastal town. It's down way down in the south, and we have the ferries connects to Denmark. It takes 20 minutes by boat, and then we're in Denmark. So, and we're about an hour away from Malmo, and we got the bridge over to Copenhagen. And yeah, it's a nice summer town. In the winter, it's pretty dead. It might remind you of Britain. I don't know if you came here, with the architecture and all that stuff.
Mm.
And for music, there's a lot of bands, but not really a scene. And a lot of places have been forced to close down, and not that many opportunities to play live here anymore.
And is that where you're from originally?
Yeah, originally I'm from here. Then when I was about 13, 14, I had to move around a little bit, but in the same part of Sweden. So I lived in a couple of different places. And about 20 years ago, I moved back to my hometown.
Okay. So talking about Kəllaps, so you had your second album come out earlier this year, which I mean, I do want to get into a little bit about the name. So the second album's called KLPS, but I suppose we just call it Kəllaps. But you had like a bit of a branding issue, right, with the name Kəllaps. What happened there? Because it's like there's a Danish band or there's a Norwegian band that's also called Kəllaps.
Yeah, a Danish band called Collapse. And when we started, or rather, I started, I was trying to get a project going, and it was just me in the beginning writing riffs and doing the MIDI drums and stuff like that. I just named it "Eye in the Sky," like surveillance, and I didn't have any plans to form a band really. And time went on, and I got a few members, and we decided, okay, let's start like something new, if you will. So we looked around, and I had the idea for Collapse for many, many years because of the Breach album, spelling it the way they did, like mixing the English and Swedish style. And we went on Google and looked it up, and we found a Danish band. But according to the internet, they hadn't been really active. That's what we found out anyways. So we said, what the hell, we're probably never leave the rehearsal room anyways, just to have a band name.
Yeah.
And we went with it, and I did the front slash backslash thing in the spelling because we decided to have lyrics in both Swedish and English.
I was wondering about that. I was going to ask you because I know that you had some in English, but I wasn't sure if you had some in Swedish as well.
Yeah, so we took that idea with the English and Swedish word and connected it in that way with the slash.
Yeah.
The first half is Swedish, and if you pronounce it in English, it's collapse. It's almost the same word in both languages. But after a while, the Danish band Collapse, they were still active, of course, and we got mixed up on the Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, and we got contacted, and they said you should probably change the name because we get a lot of your stuff, and you will probably get a lot of ours.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, I know, and we try to find a better name, but I guess we are stuck with it. And after a little while, we decided to just rebrand it to call ourselves KLPS, but it's still pronounced Kəʻlaps.
Yeah, I mean, it looks cool as a logo as well. But I guess it is kind of tricky. It's like once you've sort of, I mean, it's partly about people recognizing the name, but also I guess once you kind of start a musical project and you kind of feel like the name represents the band, you don't want to turn it into something new.
Yeah, that's what we felt. And also because the album Phantom Center had been released and it was getting a little bit of traction on the web and the good reviews and stuff like that, and we were like, oh damn, what to do now? And to rename ourselves completely would be a waste of opportunity in a sense.
Yeah, you kind of like lose the momentum from the first album. So talking about the latest record, I really enjoy this kind of, I think I said this to you before when we were messaging back and forth, that it's like, it makes me think of sort of the apocalypse coming. Like it's that kind of music where I feel like as I'm listening to it, it's like fires are burning in the distance. Some kind of like terrible apocalypse is coming. I don't know exactly what it is, but I can just see it's coming over the horizon. And I do enjoy that kind of tone. And I've seen, maybe even just on your Bandcamp, actually, the band described as sludge and as post-metal. And I get those descriptions, but I also feel like, genre descriptions are helpful, but they only get you so far. So for you and the band, how do you think of the music that you make? How would you describe it?
That's always the question, to describe your own music. But I mean, the idea was to be heavy. Like if we're mentioning post-metal, I have to say like Neurosis, Through Silver and Blood and Times of Grace. When you're listening to that, it feels like you get a sledgehammer in the chest. I remember seeing them way back, and it was the most intense thing I ever seen in my life, I think. It probably changed me. I know it's like a cheesy thing to say, but it was really a aha moment.
Yeah.
And since that moment, I always liked that music, and I played in a couple of different bands playing that kind of stuff, but this is probably the most serious attempt at playing, post metal, if you want to call it that, I've done in my career. But the description is heavy with melodies, and like there's a little bit of everything in or from heavy music. We just don't start and stop at we want to do the Cult of Luna thing. If it fits, it fits. If it doesn't, yeah, we move on and try something else. And I mean, we dipped the toe on this record a little bit, trying stuff we didn't do before, and some of it is on the album, and some might resurface in another reincarnation later.
Okay, so like you had some stuff you were working on that didn't make it onto the album.
Yeah, and that was also some things we picked up after Phantom Center. We had about 5-6 tracks that didn't make that album. They weren't completed, but we took some ideas and took some parts, and let's try this for the new stuff, and this time maybe do something more cohesive than just 7 songs that's in the same genre.
And thinking about the lineup of the band, so you mentioned the fact that it started out with just you and using MIDI drums, and I noticed that on Metal Archives, it just lists you and another guitarist, Peter Wellefers.
Yeah.
But there's no other mention, and yet the picture shows there are 4 of you. So what is the complete lineup of the band?
It's me on guitar and vocals, Peter on guitar, Alexander on bass, and Savan on drums. That's the current lineup. And the album, our drummer Johannes, who quit the band, plays drums on the latest album. And me and Peter did all the rest, like guitars, bass, keyboards, and vocals.
Right. Okay. So the bass player you've got now, the bass player and the drummer didn't actually play on the latest record, but they're doing shows.
Yeah. And they're all full-time members now also.
So how much has the lineup changed from the point that you started the band? Was it like 2018 that you started?
Yeah, as Collapse. And I did, Eye in the Sky for maybe 1.5 years, but I didn't put anything out because I didn't have the complete songs, where there were only ideas and rough recordings at home. That sucked.
So how much has the lineup changed over the years?
No, not that much, actually. It was me and Peter. We decided to make it a band, and then we contacted Johannes. I had played with him before, so we started in 2018. The three of us, no bass player, and just fool around for a year and a half maybe, and we got a guy called Dennis on bass. So the lineup was complete, and the four of us did the pandemic sessions and the Phantom Center. And also, it was the four of us doing the latest record, but for different reasons, people quit the band, and it was me and Peter after the drums were recorded. So we had to finish the album, basically.
And so talking about the pandemic sessions that you mentioned, I was thinking to myself that, like your first single came out in 2020. And I was thinking like, all right, this is like basically the band has started just before the pandemic. And then basically, we went through this black hole in our different ways in different countries. Like I was in the Czech Republic and then I was in Germany. So I know different countries, people had different experiences, but how much of an impact did that have on the band? Because I'm imagining like you're just starting out, you're just trying to do shows and get a name for yourself, and then this happens. So what was the impact on the band?
Well, first of all, I think in Sweden we had it took some time before we had strict rules about what to do and how to conduct ourselves. So in the beginning it was like, oh well, now it's in Germany or the Czech Republic or Poland or whatever. It won't make it here. A false sense of safety, I guess. But so we had the practice place. There was a schedule, so once a week we could rent it and practice. So in the beginning it wasn't that really that bad, but when it hit Sweden, it was like kind of a lockdown, and the practice place closed, and you had to spend your time at home alone or with your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever. And we felt that I hope it won't last too long, and let's continue making music, but we have to do it separate. So the pandemic sessions was like we recorded parts, send it over. Sometimes we had to, film the riffs and show the other guys. So that's how we practiced for maybe 6-7 months.
And was that your first experience of working that way on music?
Yeah, in that way it was. But we did the same thing. We sent the riffs over, and writing tabs sometimes back in the day before you had a good camera on your phone. But that was a great tool to have in a situation like that if you want to keep trying to evolve the music or the band.
Yeah,
you can't really practice in a room, but you can still make music together, and it feels like a band instead of doing it on your own.
So those pandemic sessions that you did, how did that fit on the timeline with the restrictions in Sweden?
Yeah, it was during the lockdown period. We had just before we couldn't practice anymore together in the same room. We had a couple of songs, and we decided to do something with it. And we had, I think, 3 or 4, but only 2 were like pretty much done. So we decided to try and record it at home. So our drummer had his MIDI drum set, and he recorded it at home. And I did guitars, Peter did guitars, Dennis did the bass. So we did the foundation, and it took a little while, and then I got access to a little room that I could do vocals in with my laptop. So it all came together pretty good, and that's why it's named the Pandemic Sessions. I know it's cheesy, but you know,
it's fine. It's a document of a point in time.
Yeah, I know, but in hindsight, we should probably name it something else. But yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And so how close are you all now? Like, are you all kind of in walking distance from each other?
Yeah, basically. I mean, three of us is in the same town, and our drummer lives in Malmo, so she travels to Helsingborg every time we need to practice. We're pretty close, but you know, some of us are a little bit older, and you know, it's work and it's family and it's all that stuff. So we don't hang out that much besides the band when we practice and stuff like that. But you know, we've known each other for a long time, except for the drummer. She's new to us, but you know, we're starting to getting there.
So how did she come to join the band?
Well, after our drummer quit the band last summer, we were like, oh, damn, probably the hardest thing to replace nowadays, drums. So I went out on a hunt on, you know, like Facebook and Instagram, and, you know, trying to contact all the acquaintances and stuff like that. And I got about 35 no's and remembered her because we played with them in Helsingborg a couple of years ago. She also plays drums for a band called Modesty, which is like, you know, classic rock, all females, really good band. Played Sweden Rock Festival and stuff like that. So I got on Instagram and wrote her, and she was like, yeah, that sounds interesting, but I don't know if I have the time. A couple of weeks went by, and she posted something on Insta again, and where she was playing drums, and I were like, yeah, come on, let's do it. You can try one time. If you don't like it, I won't bother you again, and it doesn't have to mean for life, you know. So she decided to try out, and she came in, had only listened to the songs a couple of times, and, you know, probably nailed 2 or 3 at the first practice. So right there, and then we asked her if she wanted to join, and yeah, she felt like it would be a cool thing to do.
Yeah, I know what you mean about drummers being really hard to replace. Like, I think within sort of extreme metal genres, or, I mean, I don't know if you quite, I don't know, would you consider Kəʻlaps to be extreme metal?
Yeah, in some sense, yeah.
I guess, yeah. So like, I was just thinking, you know, whether it's death metal or sludge or black metal, you've got to have a really good drummer. And like, you know, like I'm thinking of, now I don't know whether this is in English or Swedish, the last track on the album, Aureola?
Aureola. Yeah, it's a word for halo.
Right. Like that track particularly, you know, I love this kind of almost sort of tribal drumming that like escalates in the middle of the track. Like that's the kind of thing where I think you got to have a good drummer to play that.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's really, really good. Johannes was also really, really good. And so when you play with good drummers, you need to, or you want to have that for the next one also. You don't just satisfy yourself with a good drummer.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. So that's also hard. There's probably guys and girls that can play it, but you know, you want that a little bit extra where you don't have to explain everything and you can feel it, and you know where the different accents and stuff like that comes in. So yeah, that helped us a lot. And we're looking forward to writing new music with her and see where she takes it, and if it will sound different than playing with Johannes, who is more like a power drummer. He hits really hard and, you know, doesn't do all that fancy stuff, but I mean, he lays down the rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like that's kind of an ideal situation if you can bring someone in, if you have to replace a member, if you can bring someone in that can kind of remain true to the music you have already, but they can add just something a little bit different, like their own kind of signature.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for, and I think she will bring something new to us as well.
And thinking about the guitar playing, so there's you and Peter playing guitars. How, like when I'm listening to the album, how should I differentiate between the parts of one or the other?
He plays all the leads and fancy stuff, and I stick with the rhythm because I have to sing over as well.
That makes
So
sense.
I try to keep it simple for myself, so I don't get lost too much.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. So like I'm thinking like in the middle of the track Tribulation, you've got this kind of like floaty glacial guitar going on. Is that him or is that both of you kind of interweaving on that?
It's both.
Okay.
Yeah, and we also have some ambience tracks and the synth work. So when it came together, it sounded pretty massive. And we use backing tracks for the live shows as well. For some parts, not the ambience and the synth.
Mm. So like those ambience and synths, and I guess like one bit that stands out is on the track Catharsis.
Yeah.
The intro to that, which again, talking about like apocalyptic bands, it does have a flavor of Requiem by Killing Joke. Like the track goes in a completely different direction, but it did make me wonder if that was like a little nod to Killing Joke and if they're an influence, maybe not like stylistically, but just, kind of like the tone.
Well, I've read that before also, but no, it's not a. It's more of a coincidence in that
Yeah.
case. But yeah, I know of them. I haven't listened to them that much. But we tried different stuff for like making it a little bit more interesting. Instead of just starting a song like you normally do.
Yeah.
So that was also a combination of synths and bass, I think, and we played around with it with our very basic engineering skills, and yes, it came out really good. It's also for in the song Undertow, the techno break in the middle of the song. That
Mm-hmm.
was something Peter had played with at home, and when he presented that bit of the track, I was like, yeah, that's really really cool, and it was a little bit like the Danish band LLNN vibe, that kind of thing, and yeah, we just went with it.
And so in terms of that programmed sonic element to the music, is that like coming from all of you, or is that more like Peter that's bringing in those parts?
Well, it's probably me and him doing those up until now. I don't know in the future. I hope everybody contributes if they have something. So, but in the past, it's been me and Peter that's been thinking about the keyboards and ambience and synths and that stuff, and play them also.
And you mentioned about having basic engineering skills. What was it like? I mean, whether for this recording session or just for other recording sessions as well, like, have you had other people in for, recording, mixing, production, or have you handled that all yourself or yourselves within the band?
It, for the latest record, we sent it to a mixer and a mastering guy, and that was the best thing we could do, I think. But the pandemic sessions and Phantom Center, we did all by ourselves.
And so, what was the sort of decision behind getting someone else in or getting two different people in? And how did you end up finding the mixer and the masterer?
Yeah, because first of all, it takes a lot of time. I mean, I did the mixing and mastering for Phantom Center, and I don't have any skills. So it was just like learning something and doing it for the first time and hoping for the best. And I didn't want it to sound like a demo recording because we were to release it on Trepanation Recordings. And it came out pretty good for being, the first mix I've probably ever done with, all live recorded stuff. The first one was MIDI drums. So.
Oh, right. Okay. I didn't realize.
Yeah, the EP was MIDI drums.
Oh, the EP, right. I see what you mean.
Yeah. And then we recorded everything in our rehearsal space for Phantom Center. And I took it and I said, I can try to do something with it. And I spent about 6 months, maybe.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah. Trying stuff, learning stuff, So it was a huge undertaking. So for this one, we felt to make it justice, we need somebody else to do the really difficult things. If we can concentrate on doing the best possible recording possible, we have to send it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to give people from the outside an idea, or, like people who are making music and they want to go and record and they want to get someone to mix and master their music, what kind of price do you have to pay for that?
It all depends. There are people that want to have a lot of money, and there are people that don't want the same amount of money. But you have to, if you have a band that you like and you just start looking and who recorded it and who mixed it and who mastered it. So you have to do a little bit of research, and then you have to have a budget that you can live with, because some people want like 200 euros a day for mixing. And it can take 1 week or 2 weeks, or, you never know. So you have to just do research and ask for a price and really hope for the best.
Yeah, that does make sense. Like, you got to kind of know what your range is, how much you can spend, and be aware of how much time it could take and how much it could cost, depending on what the rates of the person are.
Yeah, for sure. If you own your own studio and you have to pay rent and all this stuff, of course it's going to be expensive. But if you find people who do it at home, they can, do it for like 100 euros a day.
Yeah.
Which is a fair price. And it all depends. If you have, like, we have 6 tracks, and if they charge you by the track, that's okay. If you have 15 songs and you play in a punk band, they're probably not 6 minutes long, but it can get really pricey, and then you have to do the mastering also. We did it at a guy from the US did air recordings or mastering. I keep mixing up the name. It's the guitarist from the emo violence band Orchid, if you know.
No, I don't know them.
They were pretty big in the early 2000s. They did the whole San Diego emo violence screamo.
Yeah. I know the kind of thing you mean.
Yeah. Not everybody's cup of tea.
I don't mind some screaming. I'm fine with that. But that is kind of like a funny thing in general. Like, going back to the question about whether you're extreme metal or not in Kəʻlaps, I feel like for a lot of people, when it comes to any type of metal where the vocals are less melodic, then that can be a deal breaker for people. It's like, if you take Metallica, for example, the singing starts to get rough, but it's still, in that thrash realm, it's like, it's kind of melodic a bit. Once you get into death metal, you get into black metal, you get into sludge, you get into anything which is like shouting or screaming or growling, then it does like separate the people that aren't really into extreme guitar-based music from the people that are into it. Like, whereas, for you and me, I'm sure hearing a band and hearing any kind of insane vocals wouldn't be a sticking point necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. And like people at work or relatives and stuff like that. Yeah, music is really good, but I can't understand a word you're singing, and doesn't your throat hurt and all that stuff. So, and what if you try to be a little more this way and that way. And I'm like, yeah, what if?
Yeah. And I'm curious as well, going back to the lyrics, the fact that you write some in English and you write some in Swedish. Do you find for this style of music that like you have to approach things differently? Like I was interviewing someone recently, and he was talking about he's a French musician from a band called Death Whore, and he was talking about how usually when he's writing songs, it's easier for him to write the kind of music he plays in English. Like it suits that kind of music better, this sort of like quite fast sort of crust punk, death metal kind of thing. From time to time, he'll do things in French, but it kind of requires to think about things a bit differently in terms of the phrasing. So is that something that comes into play when you're deciding between English or Swedish?
Absolutely. And English, since I've been doing bands, it was almost always in English. So that's like the first thing that comes in my head when, writing music. I'm thinking in English, but then I was doing some Swedish stuff years ago, and the way we speak down in the south of Sweden is kind of special from the rest of Sweden. So we tried it, and I had a few phrases, and I tried on one song, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I had to put myself in the mindset to write lyrics in Swedish, and to phrase it and to not make it sound, I guess, stupid or weird. So that was a challenge in the start. We don't have that many Swedish songs, but when I get in that mood, I write in Swedish. And I really wanted to have one or two on this album, and we had two songs in Swedish. But I mean, in all of the reviews and stuff like that, I don't think they even notice. Because it sounds pretty similar. Not English and Swedish, but when you sing it.
Yeah.
So last album was also in Swedish, two songs, the opening track and the last one, not the last one, the fifth one, but yeah, it takes a little bit of practice, if you will, to get it right, and how to sing it and how to write the lyrics.
Yeah. Does it create any sort of extra complication when you're on stage and you're going between singing stuff in English or Swedish, or it's just kind of like, it's just the same as learning to play one song or another?
Yeah, you can say that. It's like, now it feels natural, but in the first 2 or 3 shows we did, we haven't had that many yet, but in the beginning it was pretty weird, but then it's the next song, and it's English. You don't think about it too much when you're up on stage.
Yeah. And so you mentioned earlier about how you've been making music for a while, and people have got families and have got other commitments. Another thing I tend to be curious to ask musicians about is, like, in general, the sort of practical side of having a band and making music these days. Like, what money is there to be made in making music these days? Like, what are the costs that people can expect, and where's the return?
Yeah, spending money on your music, that's something you have to be you have to count on it. So you have to buy your gear and amps, guitars, strings, and then you have to have a practice place, and nothing is really free. So it all depends on where you want to practice and how big of a space you want. In Sweden we have a different, like, I don't know what it's in English really, but like unions. You can join a specific one, and you get a half price rehearsal space. You can get your own, or you can rent by the hour, and you don't have to pay that much.
Oh, that's interesting. So you have a musicians union in Sweden?
Yeah, well, there's different, like all the political parties have their own. It depends on where you want to go. So you can get some pay you like 100 euros or 150 a month for being able to continue playing music in a practice place or whatever. As long as you fill out forms, you have to attendance every time you practice. You know, like, fill in the name of the band members, and by the end of the month you send it in and you get a little bit back, but it's not much. But if you rent a space and it costs you 300 euros a month, you get 150 back. So yeah, if you get what I mean.
Totally. No, I mean, that's pretty cool. And that's interesting for me too, because, you know, I've like speaking to different bands in different European countries, for example, like I get stories of, you know, different kind of subsidies that are available or different grants that might be available, like you can apply to get some kind of funding for something. So I'm always interested to get insights about how, you know, like what support there might be from one country to another. And I sort of gather in general that, you know, Sweden has quite high taxes. And then as a result of that, you do have quite a lot of money invested into public services.
Yeah, that's the upside of it.
Yeah.
So a lot of taxes, and, you know, double taxes and taxes to the left and to the right. But I mean, going to the hospital is cheap, and, you know, like public transportations and all that stuff, that, you know, it's not a big of a deal.
Yeah.
So there's some kind of reward to it. You don't have to be like, in the US, for example, it's like $200 to go to the doctors to get some penicillin or whatever.
Yeah, it's terrifying. And it's like if you fall unconscious and someone calls an ambulance for you and you get taken to the hospital in the ambulance, now you've got to pay for the ambulance trip.
Yeah. It's messed up.
Yes. And I also, so then like, but on the other side of that, so that was an interesting insight about the potential funding and what you said about the costs, but what can you expect to get back? You know, like I noticed online, for example, on Bandcamp, at least on Bandcamp anyway, the vinyl for the latest record is almost sold out, which is great. So
absolutely.
Is that something that you can sort of, like the return from, I know, you know, we live in this age now with a lot of people getting their music via streaming platforms. What can you get back in terms of physical music sales at this point?
That's a really good question. I haven't gotten I don't have the details in my head, you know, in the contract we did with These Hands Melt, but, you know, I mean, he paid for all the vinyls, he paid for the CDs and a lot of other stuff. So, I mean, what he sells is the money is probably his. And I know by law, he has to pay us some royalties eventually. It's been a while since I read the contract, but I mean, in the end, it won't amount to much money. The thing for me about music, and I've been doing it for 30 years, playing in bands, it's never been about, you know, making money. I know it sounds cheesy, but, you know, I've been around Europe and I've seen a lot of things and I've met a lot of people, and for me, that's probably the biggest reward so far. I mean, I have been able to put out music in different genres and stuff like that, and that's also very rewarding. You know, that somebody else wants to take a chance on you because the other party also has a lot of money invested in a band. And, you know, well, even today, streaming, you know, you have like 30,000 streams on Spotify, but it doesn't really mean much besides saying to somebody that doesn't really know, yeah, we have 30,000 streams on Spotify. For them, it sounds impressive. But I mean, for me, it doesn't really matter.
No, that does make sense. Yeah, and I completely get what you're saying about not doing it for the money. I think it's like, on the one hand, if you're not making music with the thought of like, oh, I'm going to make money out of this, there's a liberation from that, because you don't have to worry about what people are going to think of it. It's like you do what you think is good. The thing that I feel is that I don't like the idea of artists putting in a lot of work and effort and someone else making money from it. That's the thing that kind of bothers me, like about the system in general and why, things like Spotify, I'm like, someone's getting very rich and it's not the bands.
That's true. I mean, I think we collected 150 euros from Spotify for up until last year for the streams we had. So 150 euros. And I think it was like 45,000 or 50,000 streams. We got 150 euros. So, I mean, yeah. But the Spotify thing is also, it's the biggest platform. It's the easiest way for people to hear you. You don't have to buy anything besides the subscription. So, I mean, if we could get rid of it, that would be fine. But I think not all bands, but it's a good way to get your name out there in the fastest possible way.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of exposure to be had from that. I noticed you have a website for the band.
Yeah.
So in general, what's the best way for people to keep track of, news about the band, releases, if you're going to be playing shows? I guess if they go to the website, that'll direct them to different places. But as much as I also have my misgivings about social media, that also does have its uses too. So are you is there a particular platform that you tend to be using most to keep updates with?
Yeah, the Instagram page is where I spend the most time, I guess, updating it. And the website, I try to update, but I tend to forget about it sometimes. The platform on my phone for that one isn't really that good, so I have to be on my stationery and.
I know exactly how it is. I have the same thing. I have a website and I kind of maintain it a bit. I even have a reminder in my calendar, like, do something this week. But Instagram's so easy because you can just go on your phone and you can instantly do something.
It's a great tool, but I don't like the algorithms, and it's like it's phony. They want you to pay for exposure, and I've seen a lot of other bands promoting their album, with a paid something, and they only have like, I don't know, like 100 views. So I mean, it's like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
I don't think you reach any more than you already do.
Yeah, and I noticed there's so many advertisements when I do actually scroll on Instagram, and I kind of wonder to myself, I'm like, I'm following quite a lot of people, but I feel like it's only like 1 in 6 posts I see that are actually anything to do with someone that I follow. The rest of it's all advertisements in one way or another, or like accounts that they want to show me. I feel like there's a scam going on here.
Yeah, for sure. And I've noticed something if you like something for a specific person or a band, you get that a lot. And then if you follow 900 more, you never see them. And once in a while they pop up and you're like, oh, that was like 1 year ago. So I mean, it's difficult.
Yeah.
They said technology would make it easier, but I don't know.
I don't know either. So having brought up gigs, like, do you have some shows booked for the coming weeks and months?
Yes, we're on June 1st. Oh, sorry. We're playing Malmo with Ernst from Germany and a band from Malmo called Paradox. And the weekend after, we're playing Västerås Doomfest with Switchblade and 10,000 Years, Eyes of the Oak, and a lot of other cool bands. And then we are waiting for it to be confirmed. We have one show here pretty locally, but it's not confirmed yet. And in the fall, in September, we're playing in Stockholm with Oro and Meridia. That will be pretty cool.
Nice.
So that's it for now, because Peter just became dad for his second time. So
congratulations to him.
Yeah, and so he can't really commit to all the things we want to do right now. So, but for the next year, we're hoping to do something a little bit more extensive.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Daniel, it was a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for your insights. And yeah, it's been cool listening to the record. And so for anyone that hasn't checked it out yet, obviously they can go to the streaming services, but they could also go to Bandcamp. Maybe they might like to even just buy a digital copy of the album if they don't want to get a physical copy in vinyl or CD. And yeah, support underground artists in one way or another.
That would be really nice.
All right. Thanks a lot, Daniel.
Thank you very much.